Last spring, my family and I had our annual picnic at the park. I always looked forward to this day in April as a way to unwind after a long work week. I'm a history teacher, so spring is usually a happy time. The park was alive with kids laughing and families chatting, but this day felt strange. We set up our blanket under a cherry blossom tree. I noticed dark clouds gathering in the distance. I thought, typical spring weather. My wife, Linda, and our kids, Sarah and Jake, unpacked sandwiches and snacks. I saw other families packing up, leaving the park in a hurry. That was odd. Then, the air turned cold. I felt the chill creep into my bones. I glanced at my family. They were happy, but I couldn't shake my unease. The cherry blossoms danced in the wind. I took a deep breath, trying to push it away. As the kids ran off to play, I leaned back and watched them throw a frisbee. But then I felt it. Someone was watching us. I shook my head, convincing myself it was my imagination. I turned back to Linda, and we talked about our week, but my eyes kept drifting to the kids. They had wandered toward a group of trees at the park's edge. I tried to focus, but a nagging fear tugged at me. It was just a picnic, right? Then Jake shouted, "Dad, look!" I glanced over. He was crouched next to a big tree. I hurried over, but before I got there, he disappeared. My heart raced. "Jake?" I called, looking around. No sign of him. Just as panic hit, he popped up behind another tree, grinning. "What were you doing?" I asked. He just shrugged, like it was no big deal. When I returned to the blanket, Sarah looked strange. She started talking about things she couldn't possibly know. Old events, people's names. I frowned. Was this a game? I forced a laugh, but felt unsettled. The temperature dropped even more. It was time to leave. I grabbed our things, and Linda agreed. As we walked to the car, I glanced back at those trees. They seemed darker, as if they were watching us. I tried to shake it off. In the car, I couldn't stop thinking about that day. Why were the clouds there? Why had Jake disappeared for those moments? I felt cold. A chill wrapped around me, and I wondered what had happened. I looked at my kids differently now. Did they know something? I thought about that strange sensation. Something felt off, but I didn't understand what it was. As we drove home, I felt that coldness lingering. It still haunts me. What had been hiding among those trees? Whatever it was, I doubt I'll ever know. The next morning, I woke up with a knot in my stomach. I kept replaying the picnic in my head, trying to make sense of everything. My alarm buzzed, and I dragged myself out of bed. Coffee was the only thing on my mind. As I made breakfast, Sarah came down, her eyes still bleary from sleep. She sat at the table, pushing her cereal around. I asked her about the picnic. "Do you remember anything strange?" I said, trying to keep my tone light. She looked at me, confused. "No, Dad." "What do you mean?" I started to explain, but she shook her head and went back to her cereal. It didn't help. Did she really not remember, or was there something deeper she wasn't telling me? After breakfast, I decided to take a walk around the neighborhood. I needed a distraction. As I strolled, I spotted Mrs. Thompson, my neighbor. She was weeding her garden, and I took the chance to ask her about the park. "Did you see anything odd down by the cherry blossoms yesterday?" I tried to sound casual, but my heart raced. She paused, looking at me with a furrowed brow. "Odd? I don't think so. But those trees they've always given me the creeps." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. "They were planted long ago. Some say they hold memories. Unsettling stories. I didn't know what to say. I needed to know more. Like what? I pressed. She hesitated. People disappearing, feeling watched. You know, the usual. I felt a chill run through me. I didn't want to hear this, but I couldn't stop myself. Has anyone gone missing? She shrugged. Not recently, but the stories linger. I nodded, uneasy. Nothing could be confirmed, but I felt an urgency creeping in. I thanked her and turned to leave. As I walked back home, I decided to check on Jake. He was building something in the living room. I sat down beside him and asked, "Hey, buddy, what were you doing when you disappeared in the park yesterday?" His eyes flickered. I was looking for something. Looking for what? He shrugged again. Just a thing. I knew better than to push him. But my heart raced with curiosity and fear. What could he have been looking for? Then, out of nowhere, Jake's toy box tipped over. Toys scattered across the floor. I leaned down to help him collect them, and that's when I saw it, an old, wooden box half hidden underneath. I pulled it out. It was heavy and covered in dust. Where did this come from? I asked, turning it over in my hands. Jake just stared at it, his face pale. I don't know. I hesitated, my heart pounding. I slowly opened the box, but before I could see inside, the lights flickered and went out. The house plunged into darkness. Panic surged through me. I called out for Linda, but all I could hear was the sound of my own breath, heavy in the silence. I wanted to close the box and forget about it, but I felt compelled to look inside. It was then I understood I needed to know what was going on. I had to make sense of this, and fast. Something was definitely wrong. The silence was deafening. I stood there in the dark, the box still clutched in my hands. My eyes struggled to adjust, but the gloom swallowed any hope of seeing anything. I could hear my heartbeat loud in my ears. "Jake?" I called softly, fearing he might be scared. When he didn't respond, I strained my ears for any sound. I felt the walls pressing in around me, making the air feel thick and heavy. Then I heard it, something faint. A whisper, as if carried from another room. A feeling of urgency washed over me. I had to get to the flashlight. I stumbled toward the kitchen, eyes wide in the pitch blackness, trying to clear my racing thoughts. I fumbled around until my fingers brushed against the surface of the counter. My pulse quickened. The flashlight was there, finally. I felt a sigh of relief escape my lips. As I switched it on, the beam cut through the darkness, illuminating scattered toys and furniture. "Jake!" I called again, my voice a bit louder this time. Still no reply. With the flashlight in hand, I moved back toward the living room, the box still clutched tightly. The floor creaked under my weight, resounding in the deep silence. I felt the weight of the box shift slightly, a reminder that something was inside. I hesitated, taking a deep breath before I knelt down to see the contents more clearly. I saw a piece of paper lying inside, folded and slightly yellowed with age. I reached for it, fingers trembling. Just as I pulled the paper out, I felt a breeze sweep through the room, chilling the air. There was no window open. My skin prickled. Ignoring the sensation, I opened the paper. At first, the handwriting was shaky, almost like a child's. Words swirled in my mind. Then, a name caught my attention: Daniel. I didn't know anyone named Daniel. My gut twisted. The next set of words sent a shiver down my spine: "I'm sorry. I can't remember." What was this? Just as I began to digest it, another noise shot through the silence. A distinct thud echoed from upstairs. It was followed by a soft giggling sound that sent my heart racing. I stood frozen, the flashlight beam quivering with my nerves. "Jake?" I called hesitantly, hoping against hope it was him. The giggling stopped, plunging the house back into isolation. I felt drawn to investigate, but dread tugged at my limbs. I grabbed Jake's toy bat from the floor before slowly making my way toward the stairs. I had to see what was up there. Just as I reached the first step, the lights flickered back on. For a split second, I was blinded by the sudden brightness. I blinked rapidly, squinting into the living room. Everything appeared normal, except the feeling of wrongness remained. Then my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, hoping to find a text or an update from Linda. But the screen was blank. Just as I was about to turn it off, the signal bar flickered and then showed a mysterious text, "Don't go upstairs." The blood drained from my face. I stood frozen, the old wooden box abandoned on the floor. My heart raced as I realized I was not alone in this house. Something was definitely stalking me. The weight of the text lingered in my mind. "Don't go upstairs." Who sent it? I could feel the panic creeping in, settling deep in my stomach like a stone. Every hair on my arm stood on end, but the rational part of me pushed back. I couldn't just stand there. I was Jake's only hope. Taking a shaky breath, I slid my phone back into my pocket and turned the flashlight toward the stairs. The light danced across the walls, illuminating the faded wallpaper and the family photos hung askew. They stared down at me, their smiles seeming more sinister in the glow. "Stay calm," I whispered to myself, gripping the toy bat tightly. I needed to find Jake, and that meant confronting whatever lay above. The first step creaked in protest beneath my weight, and I took another, then another, each one feeling heavier until I reached the landing. The hallway was darker up here. I aimed the flashlight down the corridor. Shadows wavered and warped, filling the spaces between the doors. I hesitated. Was I really hearing noises? A soft rustle drifted from the end of the hall. My heart dipped. "Jake?" My voice trembled, betraying my fear. No response. The silence pressed in again, thick like fog. I took a hesitant step toward the sound, my shoes barely making a noise on the worn carpet. With each step, my resolve weakened, thoughts of what might be lurking twisted in my mind. What if? As I approached the last door, I felt an inexplicable pull, an urge to turn back. Just as I reached for the doorknob, I heard it again, the soft giggle, unmistakably childlike and filled with mischief. It sent chills racing down my spine. This wasn't Jake. My instincts screamed that something wasn't right. I threw the door open, its hinges creaking with age. The room was empty. Dust motes floated in the flashlight's beam, and there was no trace of Jake. I peered into the closet and under the bed, heart pounding. Nothing. Then I saw it, a faint outline in the corner of the room, a shadow dancing just out of reach of my light. My hands shook as I trained the beam on it. I pushed forward, and as I did, the shape flickered, almost like it was pulling away. Suddenly, the lights flickered again, and everything went dark. Panic gripped me. I turned in a circle, fighting to regain control, but the familiar laughter echoed again, louder this time, almost gleeful. My breath hitched in my throat. "Jake! Where are you?" A scuffling noise came from behind me, and I spun around, raising the bat defensively. I could feel a presence, something shifting in the dark. I stumbled, tripping over my own feet, and as I hit the ground, the flashlight slipped from my grasp, illuminating the floor before going out completely. In the fleeting light, I caught a glimpse of something small and quick. And then it was gone. The silence swallowed me once more. But deep down, I knew I had to move. Something was in the house, something that didn't want me to find Jake. I scrambled to my feet, heart racing. I wasn't done yet. I had to get out, to find him before whatever this was closed in for good. Just as I turned to flee the room, a final thought struck me. Maybe I wasn't alone after all. Something whispered from the dark, a voice I didn't recognize. "Your turn." I shot out of the room, adrenaline pushing me forward. I had to escape, but I had a feeling it might be too late. I raced down the hallway, my heart pounding in my chest. I couldn't shake that voice. Your turn. Who or what was it? I barely paused to think as I darted down the stairs. Each step felt like a race against time, a desperate scramble to find Jake before whatever shadow lingered behind me caught up. At the bottom of the stairs, I skidded to a stop. The living room was eerily quiet, the air thick and heavy. I flicked the flashlight back on, sweeping the beam across the old furniture. The sofa loomed like a shadowy beast in the corner, and I had to fight the urge to look away. I called out again, Jake. Answer me. Nothing. I stepped cautiously into the room, eyes trying to pierce the dark corners. That laugh echoed in my head, a ghostly reminder that I wasn't alone. If Jake was here, he was hiding, probably scared out of his mind. But I couldn't shake the feeling I was being watched. Then I heard a soft tapping sound. It came from the kitchen. I hesitated, weighing my options. The rational part of me screamed to leave, to find help, but another part urged me to be brave, to stand firm. I moved toward the kitchen, motivated by whatever was left of my courage. The kitchen light flickered but stayed on. I could see the countertops, the old oak table where we used to eat family dinners. Suddenly, the tap sounded again, and I froze. It was coming from the back door, the one that led to the yard. Cautiously, I edged closer, heart racing. The tapping continued steady, rhythmic like someone was knocking, but there was something off about it. It felt unsettling, like a taunt. Jake? I called again, louder this time. No answer. I reached for the door handle, but the squeak of the hinge echoed through the room, amplifying my anxiety. I cracked the door open, and the sunlight hit my eyes. The yard was just a yard, empty except for the swing set that swayed gently in the breeze. Nothing seemed out of place. But what I noticed made the hair on the back of my neck stand on end. The swings were moving, not from the wind. They swung back and forth, as though someone had just gotten off them. A chill shot through me. Jake and I used to play there for hours. I remembered the laughter, the carefree days. But now, dread flooded my senses. Not knowing what else to do, I stepped outside, drawn forward. My shoes crunched against the gravel as I made my way to the swings. As I approached, I noticed something in the dirt beneath them. A small shoe, brown and muddy, was buried half in the soil. I gasped as recognition hit me. It was Jake's. Panic surged through my veins again, stronger this time. My fingers trembled as I picked it up. Jake! I shouted, my voice echoing in the empty yard. But before I could take another breath, the laughter returned. It wasn't just a whisper this time, it was louder, closer, echoing around me, wrapping around my throat like a noose. I spun around, expecting to see him, but there was nothing, just the vast silence of the yard. Then I felt a rush of cold air, and I turned my flashlight back toward the house. The living room window now glimmered in the sunlight, and in that moment of clarity, I realized I could see a shadow behind the glass. Heart racing, I bolted back to the entrance, skipping several steps. I needed to get back inside, to find Jake. As I crossed the threshold, I shot a glance toward the window one last time, and through the glare, I saw a figure, small and shadowy. Jake! I yelled, my voice hoarse. The figure lifted its head, and for just a moment, I thought I saw a familiar face. But then it faded into the shadow. It hit me then, I was running out of time. Whatever was in the house wanted me, and it wouldn't stop until it got me. I needed to figure out what was going on and find Jake before it was too late. The moment I stepped back inside, I slammed the door shut behind me. The sound of the latch clicking into place felt almost like a dare as I leaned my back against it, gasping for breath. My pulse hammered in my ears, drowning out the memory of that laughter. I needed to focus. I had to find Jake. Jake! I called again, my voice trembling. The only response was silence, heavy and foreboding. I flicked off the flashlight, wanting to bathe in the day's light, even if it felt completely insufficient. With shaky legs, I moved deeper into the house. My thoughts raced. Was he hiding? Had something happened to him? I headed toward the hallway where I first lost sight of him. The old family photos hung on the wall, their smiles frozen in time. They felt eerily out of place now, like they were judging me for what was happening. I peeked into the first room on the left, a spare bedroom, untouched and covered in dust. I could have dismissed it, could have told myself he wasn't there, but something caught my eye, a flicker of movement just beyond the bed. My heart dropped, and I stepped in, trembling. As I rounded the bed, I thought I saw a shadow dart away, but it wasn't Jake, it was just the draped fabric of the old window curtain, twisting in the breeze. This place felt like it was alive, and every creak sounded like a warning. Jake! I shouted again. If he was hiding, I needed to assure him it was me. Nothing stirred. I moved to the next room, the bathroom. The door creaked open, revealing shadows pooling in the corners. I flicked the light on, nothing. The bath was empty, the mirror fogged up from the humidity. I focused on the window. It felt too quiet outside, as if the world held its breath. Then, an unexpected noise sent my heart racing again. A soft giggle, sweet and innocent, echoed down the hall. My stomach twisted as I stumbled backward. Jake? I managed, barely above a whisper. The giggle came again, lighter this time. I followed the sound. It led me to the living room, where the sunlight poured in, revealing everything in stark clarity. But the childlike laughter died instantly the moment I stepped inside. I scanned the room, searching every corner. That's when I saw the mysterious box on the coffee table. A small, wooden chest. It wasn't there before. I could have sworn it hadn't been there when I ran upstairs. My breath hitched as I approached it, the familiarity of the craftsmanship sending chills down my spine. Without thinking, I lifted the lid. Inside lay an assortment of trinkets, old toys, a worn-out teddy bear, and something that looked like a bracelet. Jake's bracelet. Panic gripped me. I knew he wore it all the time. As I picked it up, a cold wind swept through the room, slamming the door shut behind me. I turned sharply, eyes darting to the windows. They were still shut, but in that instant, I felt it again, an omnipresent fear wrapping around me like a fog. Something deep inside me screamed that time was running out. I had to find Jake. But just as I turned back toward the door, the flashlight flickered back to life and illuminated the living room. My heart stopped. There, at the edge of the doorway, I saw the faint outline of a small figure. Jake? I whispered, praying it was real. It turned, and for a fleeting second, I saw his face wide-eyed like he was in a dream, but then he vanished into thin air. That was it. I had to make a choice, stay and fight whatever had taken him or chase after his shadow. I chose to run into the dark hallway beyond. The hallway felt even darker than before, an oppressive silence wrapping around me like a blanket. Each step was deliberate but frantic. My heart pounded, urging me to keep moving. Jake! I called, desperate for a response. I turned a corner and found myself in the kitchen. The room was sunlit, bright and seemingly empty. The faded wallpaper peeled away at the corners, and the ancient fridge hummed ominously. I scanned every inch, but the only sound was the creaking of the old house settling. I cursed under my breath. I had grown accustomed to the quiet, yet this silence felt unnatural. Just as I was about to leave, something caught my attention. A small figure appeared by the sink, a doll, porcelain and pristine, yet out of place among the grime. I approached cautiously, every instinct telling me to be careful. As I crouched down to pick it up, I felt a shift in the air, a sense of movement behind me. I whipped around, almost expecting to see Jake standing there. But the kitchen remained empty, just the quiet echo of my breath punctuating the atmosphere. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I grabbed the doll, half expecting it to be cold in my hands, but it was warm. A chill ran down my spine. I squeezed my eyes shut briefly. It was just a doll. But the unease clung to me as I placed it back down. "Jake!" I yelled again, a mixture of fear and rage overtaking me. Where was he? Did he need my help? My thoughts spiraled as I stepped back into the hallway, the shadows closing in around me. The hallway stretched away like a tunnel, too dim and too long. I hesitated, ready to turn back. But then, a flurry of whispers, soft as wind chimes, floated through the air. The words were unintelligible, yet they pulled me forward like a thread. I felt myself drawn down the corridor, unable to resist. Suddenly, the whispering stopped. I froze, caught midway, as a door clicked open at the far end. I could see it swinging ever so slightly, beckoning, tempting me to come closer. A strange blend of anxiety and curiosity churned within me. I started toward the door, heart racing, determined to confront whatever was there. Just as I reached for the handle, an aggressive gust of wind blasted down the hallway, slamming the door shut in front of me. Startled, I stumbled back. Then, the whispers returned, closer and louder. I couldn't understand what they were saying, but I sensed urgency. "Jake!" I murmured under my breath, the name a lifeline to ground me. Then, I heard a series of soft thuds, rhythmic and echoing, moving behind me. I turned sharply, but there was nothing except the shadows crawling along the wall. My instincts screamed that I needed to escape. But I had to find Jake. With renewed determination, I pressed forward, ready to confront whatever lay on the other side. I forced myself to reach for the door again, the air thick with tension. That's when I heard it, a small voice, fragile and scared. "Help me." My heart dropped. This wasn't just a search anymore. I was racing against time. I lunged for the door handle, ignoring the hesitation in my gut. The voice, was that really Jake? Or was it something else trying to lure me in? I turned the handle slowly, the metal cool against my palm, every instinct warning me to stop, to turn and run. The door creaked open, revealing a dim room filled with shadows that danced against the walls. I stepped inside, pulling the heavy wood behind me, shutting out the rest of the house. There was a musty smell in the air, and the window was covered by dark curtains that didn't let in a single ray of light. "Jake?" I called softly, my voice sounding small and fragile in the oppressive silence. I stepped further inside, my eyes adjusting to the gloom. In the far corner, something shifted. I squinted, straining to see. Then I saw it, a figure huddled on the floor. I took a cautious step forward, heart racing. "Jake!" I shouted, desperation flooding my voice. The figure flinched at my voice but didn't turn around. It was smaller than I remembered, and as I approached, I realized it wasn't just Jake. It was a group of children, all sitting close together, their wide eyes reflecting fear. They looked lost, scared, and confused, as if they didn't belong here. "What happened?" I whispered, kneeling down to their level. "Where's Jake?" One little girl with tangled hair looked up. "We saw him. He came through the door, but then it shut." Her voice trembled, like she was afraid to say more. I glanced back at the door, a knot tightening in my stomach. "What do you mean? Did he go outside?" The girl shook her head vigorously. "No. He didn't come back." Panic surged in me. "We have to find him." I stood up quickly, turning back toward the door. But as I reached for the handle, it wouldn't budge. I yanked it again, and it still wouldn't give. "Let us out. Please." Another child cried, his voice breaking. I pressed my body against the door, my heart pounding angrily in my chest. The whispers began again, swirling around me, this time clearer, with a dark sense of malice. A shiver ran down my spine. Help us, they seemed to chant, echoing like a chant. I could feel the room closing in, the walls tightening around me with each passing second. Suddenly, I remembered the doll from the kitchen. The warmth of it. It was a warning, wasn't it? I realized I had to focus. What do you want? I shouted into the darkness. I felt foolish but desperate. The children gazed at me, their faces pale, but I saw a flicker of hope in their eyes. They wanted help. My breath hitched in my throat. I'll find him, I promised, knowing it was the only thing I could do. Then, beside me, a shadow moved. I turned sharply, dread washing over me, my skin prickling with fear. That's when I saw him, a figure slipping through the darkened doorway behind me, the outline too familiar to be anything but Jake. But when he stepped into the pale light, his face twisted in terror. Get away from them! He screamed. Everything went dark as the door behind him slammed shut. I stood frozen, my heart racing as the darkness enveloped us. I could still hear Jake's frantic voice echoing in my ears, but confusion filled my mind. The air felt thick, charged with a strange energy. I reached out, trying to comprehend what was happening. Then, a flicker of light pierced the gloom, just a glimmer in the corner of my eye. I turned towards it instinctively. It was coming from the far side of the room, illuminating something that caught my attention. My breath hitched as I squinted. There was a mirror, leaning against the wall, its surface covered in dust and grime. But that light, it was beyond ordinary. It seemed almost alive. I felt drawn to it, despite every instinct telling me to run. I took a hesitant step closer to the mirror, sensing the children's eyes on me, filled with silent pleas. Stay back, I whispered, my voice shaky. I had to figure this out. If Jake had gone through that door, maybe he was somewhere in this dark realm. Then I noticed something strange in the reflection. It wasn't just my own face staring back. Behind me, I could see Jake again, and he was changing. The fear in his eyes was replaced by something darker, something that felt predatory, and my stomach turned. Jake, what's happening? I called, my voice trembling. He stepped forward into the light, but it was as if a shadow was trailing behind him, slipping into the sphere of the mirror. I felt an urge to reach through the glass, to pull him back, but fear gripped me, paralyzing me in place. Get away from the mirror! He yelled, his voice strained and frantic. It's not just a mirror, it's a portal, and you shouldn't be near it. A chill ran through me. I registered his warning but couldn't turn away. The fingers of fear wrapped around my heart, and I realized the whispers had returned, louder this time. Join us, stay forever, they beckoned, making my skin crawl. Please, Jake. Help me. I shouted, desperate and feeling like I was losing him all over again. He shook his head violently. Get the kids out. I'll hold it back. Before I could respond, a loud crash echoed through the room, shaking the floor beneath us. The children gasped, eyes wide and panic rising in their chests. The mirror rippled like water, and I saw faces in the glass twisted, silent screams etched on their features. They were trapped, just like the children. No! I screamed. I couldn't lose another person. I moved instinctively toward the mirror, thoughts swirling chaotically in my mind. If he was right, I had to break its hold. I could feel Jake fighting something there, and I needed to help him. With a surge of adrenaline, I lunged at the mirror, my hand stretching out to touch the cold surface. I could hear the children crying, the echoes of their fear burning into my heart. Then everything went dark again, but this time, I felt a pull, a force trying to drag me away from the kids and from Jake. I struggled, blood pounding in my ears, desperate for connection. Just when I thought I might slip away, I caught a glimpse of Jake, and our eyes locked. "I won't leave you," I shouted into the void. The pull grew stronger, and I could feel my body stretching, breaking apart. Then came a voice, cold and distant, chilling me to my core. "You can't fight us." I was scared, but I wouldn't give in. I had to find them. I struggled against the weight of the darkness pressing down on me. "Jake!" I screamed into the void, my voice echoing as though it was being swallowed by the gloom. I clawed my way through the emptiness, fueled by the urgency of finding him, a thin thread of connection holding me to that fleeting glance we'd shared. Then, abruptly, a flicker of light appeared, expanding like a pulse. I felt a rush of wind against my skin, and suddenly, I was standing again in the dim room, the children surrounding me, all eyes wide with uncertainty. The mirror remained ominously in the corner, its surface swirling as if alive. "What just happened?" I gasped, still feeling the remnants of that shadowy realm clinging to me. The little girl from before spoke up, her voice a thin whisper, "He's fighting it. He needs you." I could only nod, instincts kicking in as I fought to rally my resolve. "Jake! I'm coming!" I shouted, but I felt the weight of the dark force lingering nearby, grinding my hope into dust. Suddenly, another crash echoed through the air, sending tremors underfoot. The whispers screamed louder, weaving in and out, casting their seductive lure. Desperate, I grasped the hands of the frightened children, pouring my courage into them. Together, we needed to break whatever hold this thing had on Jake and the others trapped within the mirror. Moving to the center of the room, I located a shard of what appeared to be glass on the floor. It was jagged and glinted in the scant light. "We can break it," I said, my heart racing. "If this is a portal, we need to sever whatever binds it." Trembling, I gripped the shard tightly, the sharp edge biting into my palm. I turned to face the mirror, its surface still rippling ominously. I could hear Jake's voice drifting in from the other side. "Don't. It's not safe." But I couldn't pull back. I had come too far, too close. "We're the light," I shouted defiantly. As the shadowy figures twisted behind Jake in the reflection, I hurled the shard at the mirror. The glass shattered as if made of ice, splintering like a web of delicate strands. A blinding light exploded forth, casting the children and me backwards, collapsing on the ground as a wave of force surged through the room. Through the broken shards, I saw glimpses of Jake's terrified face, mixed with the others. "Hold on!" I yelled, willing every ounce of strength and love into my voice. "Hold on to me." The air crackled and seethed as pockets of darkness erupted like flames, each whisper becoming a wail of fury, reacting against the disturbance I had created. Fear gripped me as shadows writhed, but where there had been silhouettes of despair, I now glimpsed flashes of joy, memories reignited amidst the chaos. With renewed determination, I crawled toward the mirror's remnants. "Jake!" My voice rang clear, slicing through the cacophony. "You're not alone. We're coming for you." In that pivotal moment as the energies swirled, I felt a tug in my core, a connection extending beyond physicality, a bond forged through love that transcended the influence of the dark. And then I understood, I could pull us all through. I outstretched my hand toward the shards, feeling the warmth of the children's grip on my other side. "Together!" I screamed, wielding our united courage against the twisting shadows. As if answering my call, the light surged from the broken fragments and swallowed the room. A wave of brilliance enveloped us just as my heart swelled with hope. And suddenly, silence. I blinked, disoriented as the world slowly came back into view. I was sprawled on the grass outside, sunlight pouring down on me, birds chirping happily overhead. The children, the shadows, where had they gone? Had I truly imagined it all? "Jake!" Panic surged anew as I shot up, searching frantically for him. "Dad?" I heard a familiar voice calling from somewhere ahead. Relief washed over me, strong and overwhelming. I spun around to see Jake standing at the edge of the park, blinking up at me in a daze, looking as though he had just woken from a dream. "Jake!" I rushed to him, enveloping him in a fierce embrace. He felt solid, warm, alive. The weight of the fear I had carried melted away as I grasped the reality of his presence, our connection grounding me against the echoes of what had just transpired. "I thought I lost you," I murmured into his hair. And even as joy washed over me, shadows lingered at the corner of my mind, the whispered promises still haunting my thoughts. "We just played and it was fun," he said softly, pulling back to look at me with wide eyes, oblivious to the terror we had faced together. "But I couldn't find you. I was scared." "Me too," I admitted, my voice cracking a little. "But we're here now, and we're safe, were we?" I glanced back toward the trees, where everything had shifted, where secrets had stirred beneath the surface, still beckoning enticingly. I had saved him, but what of the children I hadn't? I pushed that thought aside, unwilling to plunge back into the unease. We would go home. We would heal. But in that strange way, as I guided Jake back toward the car, I couldn't shake the disquieting notion that whatever darkness had loomed over our lives hadn't been vanquished entirely. The memories of the park would haunt me, linger in dreams, as whispers of shadows remained inconclusive watching. I moved on, one step at a time, but deep down, questions remained unanswered. I still felt the chill of the trees, the echoes of the past mingling with the present, a reminder that even light can't always extinguish the shadows. And some things, perhaps, will always remain unknown.